Sure. Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm your host, Radhaa. Today we're going to talk about the quest for truth, and I'm here with...
Hi guys, and my name is Danielle. We are here today to chat with Aros Crystos. So I want to welcome you, Aros. Thank you for being here with the both of us and humanity. And if you can, before we get started, would you mind sharing with us a little bit about you, a brief synopsis?
Sure. When I was growing up in Sweden, when I was about 10 or 11, there were so many people dying around me. Some committed suicide, some died in accident, and they were young people in general, and then there was also people died of old age. And then to add to it all, my uncle had died, who lived in southern Sweden, where I lived as well. And his daughter and two kids and husband was going to fly down for the funeral. And then in the middle of the night, we get a phone call that the plane crashed. But then we found out that she had, in the last minute, decided to take the train with the children. And he miraculously was saved in the plane crash, one of the few ones. So, however, then about 20 years later, my cousin, who didn't take the plane, she committed suicide. And she called me just shortly before she did it. And, and all of these things, of course, triggered something off within me. I was already triggered off in the sense that I experienced everything around me like in a backwards. It was like in a reverse mirror effect. People looked for the answers in the places where they could never be found. So I had an intuitive understanding that everything I was looking for was within myself. So my life became like a Greek odyssey, a quest for the truth. Mm-hmm. And I asked myself, why am I here? What's the purpose? And where do I go when I quote unquote die? And then I asked myself, okay, so I'm here, I'm born, I grew up and become a teenager, and I might get married, have some sense pleasures, make some money, have a career, grow old and die. I said, if that's it, let me die right now. Because there was no purpose to go through this. So I knew intuitively that there was so much more, but I had to find the answers where they could be found. And so I set out on my quest.
Wow. Where did that, so that happened, you knew that there was something more and you had to find it. It's a hero's journey. Where did that lead you?
Well, it led me first to the understanding that I wanted to know, who am I, right? Mm-hmm. Because I came to realize that I was basically a parrot and repeated things that I have heard from my parents and or read somewhere or and I realized that this wasn't my answers. It was just learned behavior. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to neutralize myself. So let's say I was on a scale from 0 to 10. I was on 10, right? And my goal was to go down to 0. By observing myself, why did I feel this? Why did I react to this? And then I realized that that's not me at all. This doesn't fit at all. So slowly and very tediously, I started becoming more aware of my surrounding and what was introduced to me and what I said and how I felt and reacted. And then many years later, I was sitting in my clothing boutique in Marbella, Spain.
Oh, cool.
And I was newly married. I was 27 years of age. And this flash, I was alone in my store. And it was just like, wow. And I stood up, ran across the street onto the beach and hugged the first person I saw. And I said, I am free for the first time on this planet. And then I said, okay, I'm a pretty cool guy. I like to hang out with myself and really get to know myself now because I had eliminated all of the other things. So now I could really start understanding who I am, So, yeah.
Wow. What do you think that flash was? A cosmic flash?
Well, it was basically, as I said, I started on 10, was go down to 0. At that moment, I had gone down to 0, and it showed up like this conscious flash. I knew.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was now ready to really discover who I really am. Like, who am I? And of course, then that goes deeper and deeper. But you see, that was the trigger, and then I went on the hero's adventure. I always call it adventures in consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I love that. I love
Wow.
that. I know, Danielle, what do you have to ask?
I really like that you're sharing this vulnerability. So thank you for doing that. And it's very relatable. I feel a lot of us go through that in our own unique way. I myself went through that with corporate America and was asking myself the same questions. And in fact, it led me down to a health and wellness path where I started changing my habits, like what I was doing to take care of my body. And then my mind followed. I started reading. There was a book that kind of had that very prolific aha moment that brought that in my mind. And it did open up some spiritual gifts at the time that I was unfortunately fearful of, and I closed them down. However, as you continue on the path, they start to reawaken. So when you were going through that path and this journey, did you yourself have any unique things occur that would bring out this intuition and the wisdom? And because you go through this process, gaining wisdom during the process, but you're also receiving information and intuitive hits and your channels are opening. So I'm curious what you experienced.
Well, I mean, it was like God had sent out a telegram to me, because after that moment, things started shifting very quickly. So from being married to this young German woman, having a clothing boutique, having enough money in a Swiss bank account, I didn't really have to do anything to the rest of my life. I could live on the dividends of stocks and all of these things. And one day I was sitting in my store, and this man comes in, and he said, "You're soon going to leave here." I said, "What do you mean I'm going to leave?" Well, in retrospect, basically, I'm a messenger. I'm just going to let you know. And then a man who came in a few days later, and he couldn't speak and he couldn't hear, but he could draw your soul's destiny like a caricature in a drawing.
Wow.
And his interpreter, he drew two paintings for me.
Aww.
And one was, the Titanic ship. When you're standing in the front of the Titanic, he drew this. I was standing in the front of a ship, and I said, "What does it mean?" He said, "Well, you're going to leave here, but you're going to come back captain of your own soul."
That.
And then the other painting was Jesus Christ schlepping the cross, and women on both sides of the street. And I said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, you're carrying the world on your shoulders, but you're going to have a lot of women supporting you in your journey, in your adventure." So, and in retrospect, it's pretty much what has happened. I went back to Europe in 2018, but that wasn't the moment that I thought it was. But that moment where I go back next time will be when I'm the captain of my own soul again, because and anyway, so after that, I lost all my money in my Swiss bank account because the stock market went crazy. I mean, it is a long story. My marriage was dissolved, and suddenly I find myself with absolutely nothing. And then later on, I find myself in America, and on the plane over, I was writing on a book called "And God Created the World." It was basically about God and the devil, because in those days I didn't have any other vocabulary for it, right? And then So I landed in Los Angeles with all of my hand-picked clothes from all over Europe. You know, I used to have money and my expensive suitcase and everything. And you know, I picked up my suitcase and then I put it in a conveyor belt where you pick it up by the street. It never arrived. So I find myself in Los Angeles with $600 in my, no, actually, that's not true. $200 in my pocket, my clothes I was wearing, and a dirty laundry bag, basically. And so that started then the real challenges. And then, of course, I met my teacher, and but before I met my teacher, again, it was like this synchronicity. I had a Cartier watch that I had bought in Marbella, which I was really attached to. and I was, and I had no more money, and I found a hotel in Beverly Hills for $25 a night, which is unheard of, but it was a really nice hotel just off Wilshire Boulevard, a European hotel, big room, black and white TV, and a bathroom and table where I can sit and write. But I didn't have any money, so I thought, well, maybe I could sell my watch. And the next morning, I walked down in the lobby, and in comes this guy, tanned, looked healthy, and just happy. And he knew me from Marbella when I had my store. And he took one look at me. I looked, I mean, I didn't look so great because, I had eaten once in a while and my hair was long and my beard was longer. I mean, I just looked like, he said, "What happened to you?" And I kind of very quickly shared with him. And he said, "Well, I know somebody who would buy your watch." So he took me to his friend in Beverly Hills, and I got I think $600 for it. It was $3,000, but for me, $600, I felt like a millionaire. And so I stayed in Beverly Hills, walked around and didn't know what to do, couldn't find a job because I didn't have a work permit. Anyway, but I was writing all of these things, and my dreams were more alive than my waking state. And I mean, I got a lot of insights. And then eventually I met my teacher, Baba Muktananda, in the blue tent in Santa Monica. And at that moment, then another period started. And at one point, I was sitting in a big program with him after he had moved on to New York in South Fallsburg. I said, "Please take me home." And there was 1,200 people there, but I experienced it from within myself, how he just looked at me and he said, "Okay, you've asked for it. Now let's see." But before that had happened in Santa Monica, where I was observing all of these people and bowing and chanting and meditating, all of that, it was pretty new to me. It wasn't something that was very familiar to me. And at one point, I stood in the darshan line and I said, "I know you are a man of God. I know you're a very special being. I don't get this. I don't understand." So I came in front of him and he hit me with the peacock feathers like he did. And I fell down on the floor in the line. I had never, ever experienced this divine peace ever before. And somebody kicked me gently in the side and said, "You have to get up because you're blocking the line." So I stood up, and I've never taken drugs, right? But I was stoned on love. I was like so high. And I looked over at Baba Muktananda, and I just saw this ocean of divine love, and hearing this voice booming within me. "This is who you are. This is what you've been looking for." So then, and then, the spiritual path is not for the timid of heart, but I was committed to get to a place and be where he is, he was, and of course is. And so it didn't matter to me. Throw it in front of me. I still not going to stop, So.
Oh, wow, peacock feather. A peacock feather. And you've completely, it was like samadhi, like you went into bliss in that moment.
Right.
See, Danielle, we had a conversation before about the importance sometimes of these gurus that aren't so prevalent on the earth anymore, but at one time they were. Well, what was his name again? This
Baba Muktananda and his successor is Guru Maya Chittvilasananda.
wow.
Oh yeah, he initiated awakened the Kundalini to thousands and thousands of people at the same time. He was sitting in a chair in New York, for example, and initiated all of these thousands of people all over the world. Very tangible experiences.
Wow.
His Shakti was so immense that his whole area here was like a container of Shakti, of energy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was he was a realized master, but then again, they are realized masters and they are realized masters, but he had reached a degree that, yeah, pretty amazing.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so inspiring. What did that experience give you, that moment of bliss? How did that shift you into who you are now?
Well, but then I had several experiences later through the years where I was shown again who I really am, right? Basically, but the beautiful part of this is that you get, with the grace comes the understanding, because if in the understanding wasn't there, my ego wouldn't allowed me to go on and go on and go on, be like a jack in the box. You come up and be put down, you come up and you be put down.
Yeah.
And so and so I realized that the seed that had been planted would eventually grow into a full blossom. And so it was just a question of being patient and keep doing follow the guidance and keep doing what the practices and things like that. Yeah, so yeah.
That's a beautiful, beautiful journey. I love it. It's such a testimony to sort of having this faith and I think a lot of people at this time are experiencing these certain crashings, right? Crashings of their life, their finances, their relationships, maybe even their health. Many people are going through these, what they think is the end, right? But I think what you've just shared is a sweet reminder that the end is just a beginning, that it sort of frees you up to experience something new. I'd love to hear.
Well, let me share this with you. All Okay, so let me just when I ask myself, who am I? And then through the grace, I had the answer. I got the answer, right?
Mhm.
And so who am I? Well, I'm consciousness, right? I am energy. And in Sanskrit, the mind is called chit.
Chit.
Chit, not shit, chit. And it means consciousness.
Hmm.
So basically, you and I are one. And the way we are one is that the same energy or consciousness that sees through these eyes or hear through these ears or experiencing is the same consciousness that you have your experiencing through. The only difference is that depending on how your consciousness as a mind operates, how much it's remembering its true nature. If it remembers only I'm a woman and this is who I am and this is my story and this is my this and that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then when the mind starts remember, then its only longing is like a wave in the ocean to fall back into the ocean. It doesn't look for anything in the five senses as much, and it's starting really to tune within itself and start looking at the world, quote unquote, as not separated from consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I watch a lot of sessions regarding quantum healing hypnosis and past life regression, and what you're talking about is kind of triggering a thought I had while you're speaking. As we are all one, you can relate to several individuals that you've never met across the globe as you're watching these sessions, and I find that fascinating. And what you're saying, kind of, I feel like it makes a lot of sense for me. It's like, oh, this is why I relate to this, or that, because we have many times that we've experienced through the evolution of our consciousness as we have gone through this karmic cycle of death and rebirth, death and rebirth. It's so powerful about what you're saying. It's not just the physical body, it's the soul. And once you're activated and the soul starts remembering, yeah, it's a beautiful trinity, like a balance of the mind, body, and soul.
I also love that it's kind of like the story of the breakdown to breakthrough. And I think that's a really powerful story right now, because I think so many people are needing to hear this, that even if their life is seemingly to unravel before them, that there is a new awakening or a new chapter available. Would you speak on that, Eros?
Yeah, so it all depends on the longing you have to be set free, because there is in the scriptures, the Indian scriptures, are saying that God will give you three gifts: a human body, the longing to be set free, and a master to show you the way. And so you can live in this body as a nightclub or a temple, right? But I think probably the best way is the balance between the two. That's what Buddha found out when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree. He went totally on one side, overdid it, and then he went the other side, and then he realized it's in the middle. And that's when he became enlightened under the Bodhi tree, right? And yeah, it depends on your longing. I like stories because they really tell sometimes really what it's all about. So there was this student who went to the master and said, I want the truth. So the master said, okay, come with me. And he took him down to the river, and he put his head in the water until he couldn't breathe anymore. So he pulled him out and he said, what do you want more than anything else right now? Air. And he said, when you want the truth as much as you want air right now, you will attain it. So it's a question. So in today's world, people think it has to happen yesterday. It has to happen immediately. People have no patience anymore. They have no discipline. They have no. Don't have the right understanding. So, but the spiritual path is still the spiritual path. It doesn't matter if you fly starships or you go up to Mars, you go up to Venus, or you whatever you do, it's still certain principles that has to be exercised and followed, and you can't hide from them.
Yeah.
But that's what people don't understand, in my humble opinion, that they think that technology has advanced them so far. And in truth, yeah, there is some certain advancement, but in truth, it's taking people back away from their soul, away from the spirit, understanding who they are. So it's becoming simple again. It's really a part of the answer. Simplify everything. Don't make it so complicated.
Simplify. I love your message. That's so beautiful. I can relate to that, because actually in Infinite Cosmic Records, my chapter is in search for a simple life, or simpler life. Anyhow, it is about that, because how crazy this world's gotten, how seduced it's gotten through technology and all of these things, bright, shiny things, that we've lost so much of our core essence, in a sense, our everyday. I don't know, there's something that is longing to come back. us. We're longing to come back to us, you know, our soul essence, I think. And um I think it really comes down to our humanity. It's so beautiful about the simple life, about simplicity, beauty, nature, quiet, you know, living that very simple life is extraordinary, because you actually get more time. You get more time because it doesn't matter. People that live in the city, sometimes they lose time because they're rushing, doing, catching up, trying to da 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 da. But the slowing down aspect is exquisite. And now you're in Hawaii, right? So you've been all over, but now you're in that beautiful Lemurian energy. Tell us about your life in Hawaii now.
Well, um, Hawaii has always, since I saw South Pacific when I was about 12 years of age in Helsingborg, Sweden. It was a musical, and Kauai was the main island in that musical, and we called Bali High. I felt this energy, and you know, I had no idea where Hawaii really was, and I didn't know anything. So, but I felt this energy, right? And then when I had an opportunity to come here the first time in 1969, Honolulu was still a coconut town, and how Waikiki Beach was like, oh my goodness, it was like a giant, long, white, sandy beach. But I felt this kinship with Hawaii, and it's always been very close to my soul, and I've been initiated 3 times into Hawaii. But basically, when a new chapter or deepening of a chapter, I'm always seem to come back to Hawaii, if it's for 6 months or for 2 years or for a week or whatever. And because it kind of rejuvenates my soul and strengthens my spirit and opens my heart more, even though there are a lot of issues here, right? But the mana, the energy of the land and everything is still there if you know where to look for it, right? So for me, Hawaii is another part of the initiation, you know, and because I know I'm going to go back to Europe, because remember I said I go back to Europe, captain of my own soul, and and so, but you know, I'm not waiting. I'm just allowing things to unfold. I'm not pushing anything, and in the meantime, you know, I lost a lot of things again. I lost the whole suitcase with all my designer clothes. It was going to be shipped over here, but USPS, it never it never arrived. And with all the clothes, I had taken a long time of energy and creativity and to create, right? And so I looked at it and say, okay, well, I don't, it's fine. I release it, but I don't like the idea that it's sitting some depot or somewhere in some place. I rather than throw it in the ocean, you know, or give it away, you know, then um, so because of that, I'm still kind of looking, see if there's a way they can find it. But you know, all of these things are because we get things, even this human body, for a short while, and then it's time to give it up. It could be a friendship, it could be a relationship, it could be whatever, you know, clothes, a house, or whatever. And when you're on the spiritual path, it's a little bit different, because when we say we are on the spiritual path, well, then we have a tendency of being challenged by ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then when these challenges comes up, how do we deal with them? And that is also an indicator where I'm at, right? And so, but again, people, I've noticed when I used to do my life coaching or mentoring ship, that people say they want enlightenment, but they really don't. They want enlightenment that fit into their arbitrary lifestyle. If they have to sacrifice something or change something, no. So this true longing for who you are is very rare. Even in the New Age communities, it's very rare. It's very temporary, this longing, this fluff. But you know, this is, it's very hard, really hard. And it takes tremendous discipline and longing to really be on the spiritual path. You know, it's not a New Age blah blah blah. You know, for it, it's it's tough without any questions.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
the rewards.
Yeah. It's worth it. I think a lot of people are choosing now. And sometimes they're getting circumstances put in their path so that it would make their choice easier. And people wonder why sometimes things are taken away. And it's because, I believe the universe is really trying to help us get there. And it is a journey, and it is a lot of letting go, like you said, Eros, I've let go of a lot in my life. And I think it's that willingness to, it's kind of like, are you willing to be an explorer? Are you willing to explore into the unknown? And it's terrifying. There is a part of it that is so scary because the ego really enjoys knowing whether even if it's bad, they just want to know. It just wants to know. And the unknown is the scariest part. But dropping into those unknown spaces is that's where the adventure begins, right, Eros?
Yeah, there is a saying that the ego disguises as your best friend, but
Mhm.
it's your worst enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So people can get really stuck for lifetimes, and they're never it's I think sometimes it's a blessing to have those falling aparts, because some people glue themselves so tightly that they never get unglued. And at some point we have to like pull ourselves apart. I always say we're the scientists of ourselves, and we sort of try different things out, and oh gosh, that was a huge error. I mean, how do scientists work? They test things out over and over again until they get, they experience something, but they go into the unknown, they try things out. But we're sort of experimenting on ourselves in this life, and we have to be willing to sort of be willing to lose it all sometimes in order to get that next quantum leap.
Well, that's why time is promised to no one is so appropriate to
Yeah.
also this conversation here, because time is promised to no one is all about what we are talking about right now.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And by the way, you guys, if you don't know, Time is Promised to No One is Eros' book that Radhaa Publishing House will be, bringing forth. We're so excited to bring forward a collection of Eros' work that he's really put his heart and soul into. So it's quite an honor. Thank you.
And going back to Hawaii, so, embracing aloha is, of course, about Hawaii, and Hawaii is basically an energetic vortex.
Mhm.
And if you draw ley lines through the different islands, it creates a very powerful energetic vortex. And that's why, how can I, Hawaii is a microcosmos. So basically, what will happen in Hawaii will happen on the planet.
Mm.
And then, of course, all volcanoes are connected, right? So when the volcanoes start going off here, and then in Iceland or in Italy or all of different places, right? Because they're all connected.
It's so wild. That's so wild. I mean, yeah, so what happens there? And there is volcanic activity there. It's the vibration that happens there, the shift that happens there ripples into the whole world.
Right, but Mother Earth is very wise in the sense that if I respect and honor Mother Earth as, you know, as the divine mother, or as you know, as a sacred planet,
Yes.
she will protect you from all of these, you know, all of these tsunamis and earthquakes and whatever it might be, right?
Yes.
And she was sometimes, it's time to move because I'm going to do some shaking here. You know, and but again, that comes back to, you got to start understanding who you are and start identifying with your that inner whisper, you know, your intuition, and let go of the chattering, you know, and really really tune in. And yeah, and again, you know, it's just becoming consciously conscious.
Love that. I love that. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Eros, for sharing with us today. I hope that this gives any listener the courage to sometimes just take that leap of faith when you don't know where you're going to land. Take a leap. And there, you know, I really love the subject of being a truth seeker, because that's where you have to keep going. Keep going. It never ends. The journey never ends, right, Eros?
It never started either.
Yeah, all right. Never started, never ends.
The whole idea is that we walk the spiritual path to realize there is no path. However, you cannot intellectualize it saying, well, there's no path, so I'm not going to walk it, right? It has to be a shift inside where you really understand that, right? So yeah, so keep walking the path, and you will get to the point where you never really left anywhere.
Oh, I love it. That's so beautiful. Beautiful. Well, you guys keep a lookout, because we're going to be releasing one of Eros' books very soon. I'll put his information below. Until next time, much love and blessings for now. Bye.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Radha. Thank you.